Oh, Resident Evil, welcome to Raccoon City. We have things to discuss.
Resident Evil. Resident Evil, welcome to Raccoon City movie review. First of all, why I decided to suddenly do a movie review is I myself am a huge Resident Evil fan. Massively huge Resident Evil fan. Alicia got recently into Resident Evil and also became a fan of the video games. Before we get going, you had mentioned that you saw the first Resident Evil movie with Mila Jovovich in it.
Yes. I saw it when it first came out, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was fine, but I felt really lost, and I was like, well, after I play the video games, it'll make way more sense, for sure. So we binged all of the games together.
Yes. Not just one Resident Evil game. I've made her play 1, 2, Resident Evil 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, you really had to twist my arm.
Yeah.
To get it
and
back.
even into Biohazard and Village.
Even Biohazard. Especially Biohazard.
Even Biohazard. So after playing the games, what did you think of the first movie?
It made less sense. It made so much less sense after playing all the games. Flabbergasted. I was flabbergasted.
So, as I said, huge Resident Evil fan myself. Played all the games back in the day when they first came out, even the side sub-games, Survivor and Outbreak. Played every game. Read every single book by S.D. Perry. Had almanacs and books on the characters and the mythology of the Resident Evil universe. Even made a fan-made film called Reluctant Evil, which I will have a link to the trailer of Reluctant Evil in this video. But that's how much of a fan I am of Resident Evil. And I've been waiting for a decent Resident Evil movie to come out. Don't get me wrong, and please don't take this wrong, I have been in love with Mila Jovovich since The Fifth Element, and having her as Alice was nice. She's a fantastic actress. Nothing against her, and they're working. But Paul W. Sanderson does not need to be writing any Resident Evil stuff, in my opinion. But the reason we're here is to bitch, moan, talk about, totally rip apart. Welcome to Raccoon City. Went into Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon Village, with an open mind. I saw the trailers, saw lots of people bitching and moaning about the casting. Don't worry, we'll get to the casting.
And there was some apprehension about the sound design, the music that was chosen in the trailer.
That true.
I thought it could be really cool, like a really interesting atmospheric choice.
Well, I think I understand the reason that they went with the music that way, simply because the game is supposed to take place in like around 98.
And that was very well established in the movie.
Yes, very well established. In case you didn't know, we're back at 1998.
Yeah, here's a Palm Pilot, in case you forgot.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know what to call that thing. It was a Palm Pilot?
It was labeled.
Oh, wow. Labeling. Fantastic. All right, so, all right, let's get into it. What did you think of the movie? Or what was your critique during and after the movie?
Okay.
You had a phrase, a catchphrase.
Yes, I did. I think the first words out of my mouth were, interesting decisions were made.
Interesting decisions were made.
Yes, and to expand on that, interesting decisions were made, and I don't know why. I don't know why those decisions were made. I feel like certain things were done very well, and the things that weren't done well, there was no reason for them not to be done well. And in particular, the casting, there were questions about the casting during the trailer, and that came up a lot in the movie. But that being said, the first characters that we see are the children. We don't recognize them. I assumed it was Sherry Birkin. at first. It turns out to be Claire and Chris Redfield.
Oh, yes. By the way, spoilers.
Yeah.
We are going to talk about this movie in depth
it's
and detail. It is a review, but plenty of spoilers. So if you don't want to know much about the movie, you might want to stop about here, because we are getting into the nitty-gritty bits and pieces of the movie.
Yeah. So the first, we don't recognize them. I thought it was Sherry Birkin, but of course we wouldn't recognize them because we've never seen Claire and Chris's kids. The first character that you actually would recognize, we both recognized immediately as William Birkin.
Right.
I think that was a decent casting choice.
True. Changing the history of Chris and Claire is a little odd. Yes, we know that they had lost their parents, but they, as far as in any reference material, were not orphans at the Raccoon City Orphanage.
I feel like it was an attempt to expand on, give some more character development, but they didn't really pursue it any further than that.
That is true. There was flashbacks, and Claire almost got
taken away
and studied on,
but they don't expand on experiments.
Yeah.
We do establish that experiments were being done and that people were dying, but
ask the kids. That's the first time we do get to meet Lisa Trevor.
Mm-hmm. I enjoyed seeing Lisa Trevor. I thought she had a really cool character design, but there was no reason for her to be there. And they also, they made her into like a guiding angel of sorts, which she was tragic and sympathetic in the games, but she wasn't there to help you out.
No.
She definitely didn't just hand you all the keys to everything that you need.
But she handed you all the keys in the movie.
Yeah.
But in the movie, later on in the movie, Lisa hands, is it Jill? No, Claire and Leon the keys. And of course, it's the spade key, the diamond key, the clover key, all the keys from Resident Evil 2. When they are no longer near, in, or around the police station where gamers know that those keys are used.
Yeah. It was like they were saying, we know that you spend a lot of time trying to find these keys in the game, and we are acknowledging, like, hey, yeah, you need the keys, but they're not put to any use in the movie.
True. A little bit of fan service then.
There were several moments like that. They did include, the slow turn zombie from the very beginning. We get to see that, and I thought that was pretty well done, because overall the atmosphere and the set design in the movie was excellent. Is
probably my biggest applaud plus for the movie is their set designs were fantastic. You go into the Spencer estate at the mansion in the Arkley Mountains, boom, you're like, oh wow, they did a fantastic job with the sets. Raccoon City Police Department, pretty decent sets. The cities looked good. The sets looked great.
Yeah. Which is what made the other decisions so very interesting.
Well, maybe that's where all their budget went.
I think it was. Because one thing that stood out to me, as I'm admiring the set designs, some of the props that were used, like we just mentioned the keys that Lisa Trevor just hands over. I'm like, I turned to Chris and I said, you bought us a set of those off of Wish, which is fantastic for us to have, but as far as a movie prop, I would kind of expect something a little nicer, more authentic looking. And later on, they're examining some documents, and they're just, instead of, finding them scattered, they come across a nice leather-bound book, and I'm thinking, this looks really nice. I would love to have this for myself. And they open it up, and they're looking at, photographs and files, and they've been taped in and stamped, and then I'm watching the movie, and I realize, no, it's just printed on the paper. It hasn't been taped in. The tape
has
is
been printed
on the paper. I could have made you a better book than this, and I come cheap.
Yeah. So some of the props,
yeah, but that's minor. I think that's pretty minor, but it was just
all right.
funny.
Changing a character's style. In the games, we'll start out with Chief Irons, and then we'll go through the characters. In the games, Chief Irons is an ass. He's a douche. He's a horrible human being. So in the movie, I'm like, okay, I can see this guy playing that part well cast, but they turned Chief Irons into a good guy. Would have been quite easy just to make him a douche.
Yeah. He was one of my most hated characters in the games. Why make him a good guy? There was no need for it. And the same with Sherry's mom. Well, I do not remember her name.
Oh, she was Dr. Birkin as well.
Okay, there we go. But in the movie, she is a housewife. She has no idea. She's completely innocent and clueless to everything going on in Raccoon City. So when William Birkin comes in and says, "Get Sherry, we gotta go," she's like, "Oh, what's going on?
What's going on?
What?
Oh no!"
And I understand you may not want to delve into her story. You may not have time. It just may not fit into the movie for whatever reason. But you could have a knowing
look back and forth
between the parents.
And they go,
like, it's time.
"Oh,
it's time. Let's go."
Let's go.
And you wouldn't need to go into her backstory. You don't have to make her a totally different character. There's no need for that.
Well, speaking of totally different characters, one of my favorite characters in the entire franchise of Resident Evil games was Albert Wesker. Even to the point that when I made my fan film, Reluctant Evil, I played Albert Wesker. So I even played that character. The actor, I do believe it's Tom Hopper. I think that's his name. Sorry if I got it wrong. I've seen him in other things. I've seen him in Black Sails. I've seen him in the Umbrella Academy. He's a great actor. But he's not Wesker. His entire look, demeanor, was much more of a Barry Burton character. And you could have just like the camera issue there, but we were talking about Wesker and how he should have been Barry Burton, or at least that's my opinion. When you first meet him in a bar, he's wearing a flannel shirt. That's not something Wesker would wear. Just have him grow out a beard, call him Barry.
Yeah.
It would have worked perfectly for the same thing, would have worked perfectly for the plot because he was basically searching for a sample of the virus.
And honestly, if you want to keep him as Wesker, you could have kept the same actor. Just make him clean shaven, maybe a slightly different hairstyle, wardrobe change.
Yeah, and have him
would have worked.
In on it from the beginning because that was Wesker.
Yeah. In
every incarnation of Wesker.
I had a different issue with Wesker, and that is that, Chris Redfield, in the movie's defense, goes through about 15 different facial appearances, facial structures in the games.
Oh, in the games, yeah.
Yeah. So both the actor who played Chris Redfield and the actor who played Albert Wesker looked a lot like Chris Redfield to me. I had trouble telling them apart.
I can see
side
that.
by side. When they're side by side, it was easy to tell them apart. But throughout the movie, I was like, "Oh, that's not Chris Redfield. That is supposed to be Wesker."
I didn't have a problem with Chris Redfield. I thought he did a good job as Chris Redfield, except for the orphanage backstory part.
But I think that Chris Redfield was probably the best casting of the movie.
Oh, yes. I would agree. On to other casting notes. I didn't have a problem with Claire.
No, and they at least put the jacket on her, They didn't do the ponytail, and, the actress didn't look, exactly like Claire, but they kept her wardrobe close enough to the game that you immediately look and, that's Claire Redfield.
Yeah, but they did make Claire kind of the master of picking locks, which is kind of Jill's thing.
Jill's thing.
Yeah. And speaking of Jill, they did throw in a Jill sandwich reference.
Right off the bat.
Right from the get-go. A little more fan service there. This is Jill's sandwich. I thought Jill was okay. Didn't really have an issue with her, but there was no real character development to care about her. She was not the female protagonist that she is in the games, where you're following her on this adventure. She was just a member of the crew, but she did okay.
Yeah, I don't really have any complaints about Jill. Like, as with a lot of the cast, she wasn't immediately recognizable as Jill. But as the movie went on, I was like, okay, that's fine. This Jill Valentine, I can buy that.
Spoiler, they had Jill in love with Wesker. What? Why?
Like I said, decisions were made.
Decisions were made.
A lot of them very strange.
Very strange. Not for the betterment of the story.
No.
That brings us to the other main character, Leon S. Kennedy. Now, nothing against the actor that played him. Yes, we know he doesn't look like Leon, and I went in an open mind. I was like, okay, well, maybe he can portray Leon fantastically in this movie. He's got
the personality.
Maybe he has the personality.
He carries himself in a Leon-esque way.
He did not.
No.
They made Leon basically the bumbling fool that kept dropping his gun, basically scared of everything. They did give him the rocket launcher attack at the end for a moment of redemption, but yeah. Not good casting.
It's like they took away from the video game that it was Leon's first day on the job, and that's all they knew about the character.
Yeah,
I
cannot see that portrayal of Leon going on to be the president's chief of security.
No.
Being sent to find the president's daughter. No.
None of that.
None of the classic Leon. He had no wit, no banter, no charm. And I'm sure the actor is a great guy, and that's just how the character was written.
That's the script.
That was the script. He did what the script asked, and he did it well, but it just wasn't the character of Leon. Did kind of look more like Carlos, but yet again didn't even have the Carlos attitude or style. I
had a hard time with that. It's like again with just like certain choices in how you're going to style their hair. It's like if they had just cut his hair and maybe
that actor actually, after that movie, has bleached his hair and parted it differently and looks more like Leon now than he did in the movie.
He looks so much like Carlos. And it was so hard for it, and particularly the hair. He has Carlos hair in my head.
He does.
But then the character that he portrayed still isn't Carlos. Because Carlos isn't bumbling. He's a wisecracking guy, you know. He's kind of cocky, but he gets stuff done. He's not dropping his gun all over the place.
I did like the eyeballs on Birkin.
Yes.
The eyeballs looked pretty cool.
I got really excited when I saw that. I was a little disappointed that they didn't have to shoot them out.
True.
But I did like it.
But one of my qualms is when he was half mutated, he had a full-on conversation with Redfield, because they've given Redfield this... He looked up to Birkin as a father figure. What? But all of a sudden he's been shot, he dies, he injects himself with the G virus, he comes back and then has a conversation with Chris. I never liked you, you could have never been a member of my family. You don't need that. He's been mutated into a monster, just let him be a monster. Don't add ridiculous, useless dialogue.
Because I actually enjoyed his transformation, and I like that progression, like you see in the game, like he just comes back again, like worse than before.
Exactly.
So that was nice, but yeah.
All right. What other avenues should we discuss about this?
Oh.
Okay, we'll talk about some of the effects and monsters in this movie. You want to talk about one particular scene?
Well, okay, we want to talk about monsters in general. First of all, I would have liked more. They had a liquor in the movie that looked fantastic.
The best liquor I've seen on screen in a movie.
But not a whole lot else. We got a reference to a hunter that we never saw. And I would have liked to have seen what they did with that.
True. We got to see Lisa Trevor, who was a much bigger character, and they gave her more of an arc, but could have been totally left out of the movie, and it would have been fine.
Yeah, and as I enjoyed seeing her, but it wasn't necessary, and they did change who she was a little bit.
True.
But I was looking forward to seeing who I have nicknamed Mr. Sad Times. They had the helicopter crash. The helicopter crashes into the precinct, and granted, it
crashed into the mansion, not into the precinct.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well,
in the movie, the helicopter crashes into the mansion, whereas in the game, RE2, the helicopter crashes into the side of the RPD building.
And it was also Jill and Wesker were on screen.
Yes.
During the crash. But still, just seeing the helicopter crash and knowing kind of the timeline that we were working with. Yeah, and he never did. And I didn't really get my hopes up because I felt like if he were going to be in the movie, they would have at least teased it in the trailer, maybe.
True.
I could be wrong about that. But when I saw that helicopter, even though it happened when Jill and Wesker were on screen and it didn't quite line up, I was still, it got my hopes up a little bit, and it did not pay off for me.
Okay, now, of course, this movie, Welcome to Raccoon City, tries to squeeze in elements of Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2 into one 2-hour movie, where they should have just done Resident Evil 1 and done the entire mansion escapades and go to flashbacks of what's going on at the city, but they should have just done it as 2 different movies instead of trying to combine both games into one.
There could have also been some adjustments made in the pacing, because as we were watching the movie, you kind of leaned over to me during the orphanage scene, which was just set up to establish that Chris and Claire had been at the orphanage. If we're trying to do 1 and 2, we're not going to make it. We got to speed up.
Exactly.
Because they were spending so much time on establishing a backstory that didn't really pay off and wasn't necessary.
They did send the Alpha team to the Spencer estate in the Arkley Mountains because they lost contact with the Bravo team. Now in this, the Bravo team was just 2 people. It wasn't a full team, and they gave them brand new names. But of course, if you've played any of the games, you know that Enrico and of course Rebecca Chambers are part of the Bravo team. There's a whole sub-team, and it was just 2 people with brand new names, Dooley being one of them. Dooley?
And again, that's one of those interesting decisions that were made. Why? Why do you need, with the exception of Rebecca Chambers, because she is important, even if you're, okay.
She's a main character.
Yeah, but even if, like, these characters don't really matter, so we'll just make up new names for them. But why, though?
You had
Because you
pre-existing
have
names.
Exactly. Just use them.
Another huge
wrong.
qualm I had with this was some of the zombies. They did pay a few more fan services to the games. They had the truck hit a zombie on the road from Resident Evil 2. And the guy gets out, and in the game, he gets bit, gets back in, drives, becomes infected, and crashes. But in this one, he's picked up Claire. They hit someone on the road. They get out, and they're arguing what to do with. And the zombie gets up. You see the zombie in the background get up and just walks away from 2 people that have their backs to the zombie. Just walks away. I know they're trying to build suspense, but a zombie would not walk away from food sources that are right there, 6 feet away, with their backs to them. Same thing happened with the fight scene with Chris Redfield, in the mansion, which I thought was a really well done scene. Totally dark room, goes in, and the only lights were his gun flashes. So he was just like, flash, flash, flash. Really well done. I thought that was really good. But he saw one pulled out a lighter. Zombies crawling towards him. The lighter goes out, strikes, and the zombie's gone. The zombie then, of course, had crawled around a bookcase for no apparent reason to come up from behind him.
Yeah, the only
Why would a zombie do that?
To build suspense, but it doesn't work in the story.
No. And any mythology on zombies, that's useless.
Yeah. And I had an issue with the truck scene as well, because the trucker has a dog. And after this wreck, we see the dog lapping up some of the zombie blood. And the next time you see the dog, it's foaming at the mouth. And, it does make sense that an individual dog could be infected by licking up some zombie blood. But this dog in particular was a Doberman. So it makes it look like that was the origin
of the Cerebus dogs. Yeah.
When it's not.
It's not, yeah. And that was the only dog in the movie, and he kept showing up periodically.
Yeah, I just didn't like the implication that was how all of those creatures were created. I feel like if you had like a different kind of dog, it could have been like a one-off, like, oh yeah, this dog was accidentally infected.
Exactly.
Without the implication that completely changes the game story.
I agree. So the basic plot of the movie also, it wasn't a viral outbreak that happened in Raccoon City. Apparently, Umbrella had been slowly poisoning the townsfolk for a year, 2 years.
For a while. It's something in the water.
Something in the water.
Something in the water.
So it wasn't really a outbreak, but it turned into an outbreak.
Yeah, I wasn't really clear, and to be honest, that is likely more on me. I can't fully put that on the filmmakers, because I was also, as I was watching it, because I've had the experience of watching a Resident Evil movie without having played the game, and then watching it again after playing the game, I kept asking myself, if I hadn't played the games already, would this make sense? Like, if I were just somebody who was like, I want to see a zombie movie, and I've heard a lot about Resident Evil.
That's also, I'm worried about that.
I don't think it would make, like,
yeah,
who is this chick with the bag on her head?
Exactly.
And it doesn't...
It doesn't explain enough of what's going on for people that aren't fans to go see it. Or they'll go see it, but they just won't understand it. They won't follow it. There's so much cameos and, as I said, 2 games combined into one. There's not enough information for the average person that doesn't know about Resident Evil, or if they were just fans of the Mila Jovovich movies. Mm-hmm. They go, okay, well, they're going to be very confused.
Yeah. And so that raises the question of who was this movie created for? Because it doesn't explain enough for just somebody walking in who's like, I like zombies, I've heard of Resident Evil games. It changes
it was advertised like for the fans.
So much.
But they changed all the characters. Yeah.
And, again, I don't understand.
Decisions were made.
Unnecessary decisions, and that's what kills me. Is I understand, maybe needing to tweak the timeline here and there, changing some aspects, leaving some stuff out, and I get that. But the changes that they made were just unnecessary and didn't add anything beneficial to the movie. So.
Yeah, there was no green herb, red herb, blue herb. Didn't see a single typewriter anywhere. Spoilers for the ending, they've kind of left it open for a sequel.
Yes, there is the after-credit scene.
Which is Wesker waking up after he's been killed, because they had Wesker, the one that shot Birkin instead of Hunk, which we saw the paramilitary Umbrella troopers in the gas mask and everything. They're like, oh man, that could be Hunk. They're fan service. But then they didn't use them ever again. So Wesker gets killed, and then comes back, and he was following a secret Palm Pilot note.
Yes, the Palm Pilot. He also had a beeper. Yeah. That was our first 90s tech.
And the Palm Pilot was given to him by Ada Wong. So Wesker is working, or is a subordinate to Ada, which is also against everything that we've ever heard or read about or know about the characters, because it was Wesker that saved Ada and made Ada work for Wesker in the games and in the books. Yeah. So, all in all, go see it for yourself.
Yeah.
Leave a comment. Tell us what you thought of the movie. If we're just being diehard fans and like, oh, you can't please everybody. Oh, this is supposed to be for the fans. No, but I thought the cinematography was good in the
Yes.
movie.
And the set design was
The set
excellent.
design was gorgeous.
It was amazing. And I do want to say, we saw, like, Chris Redfield's house. We saw, the residential areas of Raccoon City. And we also saw, like, the familiar places that are established in the games.
Yeah.
And so it was like you were seeing more of Raccoon City, and it felt very cohesive.
It did.
Like
Except for, like, the elevator ride that was
Okay.
hidden in the orphanage. That, oh, we take this elevator down, we can get to the Spencer estate. Well, the Spencer estate's like 20 miles away. How is one tunnel going to go from there to the Spencer estate? That's ridiculous.
But as far as the look, the feel...
I think that they both met at the Hive underground lab. All right, so anything else you want to add?
Overall, I did enjoy it more than the Alice movies, which I find, after playing the games, I really found unforgivable. I didn't, like, if they had been made under a different name, I think they would have been fine.
That's true, that's true.
So this did feel more like a Resident Evil movie.
I can agree. It was enjoyable for what it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't a great spiritual successor to the Resident Evil franchise. I can see what they were going for. I still just don't understand some of the decisions that were made making it.
I cannot see what they were going for, and that's what drives me crazy. Because I feel like they had a lot of potential there, and just...
It seems like they heard about the game, saw the game, went online, and looked at images of the various places of the game, built those sets, and then go, okay, now what do we do?
Yeah, well... I think if you're a fan of the games, especially if you're a completionist, I don't have to tell you to go see it, because you probably already have.
Exactly.
It's worth seeing. I still enjoyed it, even when I was sitting there shaking my head like, why? Just why?
Yeah, why?
I still enjoyed it. It was fun.
Yeah, the pacing was okay, but I mean, as I said earlier, I still think they should have just done the mansion episode with a tyrant, and then have Resident Evil 2 introducing Claire looking for her brother, instead of them just meeting and hanging out together in his house in the first 15 minutes of the film. It's like, she came to town looking for her brother. And she got there and walks up to his house, picks the lock.
Because she is the master of picking locks. Now.
Of course, I forgot that. Claire, take these lockpicks. You, the master of picking locks. What is it? Yeah.
Decisions were made.
Decisions were made. Hey, thanks for walking. Walking? That makes no sense. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment. Click subscribe if you haven't already. This will be on the YouTube page, and it'll be on my Facebook page. So, yeah, leave a comment. Tell us what you thought of Welcome to Raccoon City. I can watch some of these other videos. They'll be popping up here. I think that's a video. There's a subscribe over here.
Oh, I wait too soon.
Oh, well, no. This is just where the music is playing.